It was supposed to be the happiest day of her Lifia fairy tale wedding, a breathtaking gown, and the man she loved beside her. But in front of all the guests, the groom did something unthinkable, humiliating her with a smile that no one saw coming. What he didn't know was that someone was watching, someone who wouldn't let it slide, someone standing right behind him, ready to turn the tables. The sun sank low over the sprawling estate, casting a golden glow across the gardens. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and lilacs, and the gentle hum of a string quartet floated through the warm evening. It was the kind of wedding people dreamed of: elegant, extravagant, flawless. Emma Sullivan stood near the grand hall's entrance, her ivory dress cascading around her like liquid silk. Her eyes shimmered with nervous excitement, though a quiet unease churned in her chest. Every detail was perfect. Crystal flutes gleamed on linen-draped tables, floral arches framed the aisles like a royal procession, and guests in their finest suits and dresses murmured about the opulence. Cameras clicked, videos rolled, and all eyes were on Emma. But her gaze was fixed on him, James Carter, her groom, dashing in a tailored tuxedo. James had always been charismatic, confident, with a sharp edge that sometimes cut too deep. His grin, warm to most, carried a hint of arrogance, a shadow Emma tried to ignore as wedding day jitters. They looked like the ideal couple from a distance, but those who watched closely saw the cracks. How James's glances at Emma felt more like he was appraising a prize than adoring a partner. Tonight, that performance was reaching its climax. As the ceremony began, Emma steadied herself, clutching the arm of her father, Colonel Thomas Sullivan, a reserved man with a military past that commanded respect. Few dared approach him, but his presence was a quiet force. Emma didn't yet know how vital that force would become. The vows were exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, and then came the toast. James rose, glass in hand, flashing that too-slick smile. Emma turned to him, her heart hopeful, expecting words of love or a charming anecdote. But hope is a fragile thing. James tapped his glass, the soft clink silencing the hall. Guests leaned in, smiling, ready for a heartfelt tribute. The music faded, and an expectant hush fell. James straightened his tie with a smug flourish and began. "Well," he said, voice smooth as velvet. "Where do I start?" Emma's faint smile held, waiting for the words she'd dreamed of. But James had other plans. "I've always said relationships are an investment: time, patience, and, let's be real, money." A few guests chuckled, the sound uneasy. Emma's smile stiffened. "I mean, look at this," James continued, gesturing to the venue. "Top shelf, everything: custom gown, flowers flown in from France, gold-plated cutlery. No expense spared, because my bride deserves the best, right?" His tone dripped with mockery, the grin never fading. "I've put up with a lot to get here: planning drama, endless talks about feelings," he said, rolling his eyes. "But here we are, and I suppose you could say she's a very lucky woman." The hall went deathly quiet. Gasps punctured the air, followed by awkward coughs. Guests shifted, eyes darting. Emma stared, her pulse hammering, heat flooding her face. This wasn't a toast, it was a public shaming, a knife wrapped in humor. James chuckled, sipped his champagne, either oblivious to the wound he'd inflicted or savoring it. Then, a sound soft, deliberate. A chair scraped back. All heads turned. At the back of the hall, a man stood, his face unreadable, posture rigid as steel. Colonel Thomas Sullivan began walking forward, each step slow but resolute, striking the marble floor like a judge's gavel. James didn't notice, still basking in his moment, but the room felt the shift. Something was coming, and James was blind to it. Thomas's steps echoed, commanding silence without a word. He wasn't loud, never needed to bay, his presence alone bent the air. Conversations died, chandeliers seemed to still. Emma, frozen at the table, looked up, her father's calm intensity cutting through her shock. James finally sensed the hush, the attention slipping away. He turned, and for the first time, his smile wavered. Thomas's eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked onto him. No anger, no threat, just a cold authority forged in years of leading men through chaos. "Sir," James stammered, laughing nervously, hands raised. "It was just a joke, you know, wedding banter, all in fun." Thomas didn't blink, didn't nod. He didn't need to. The estate's security, ex-military hired discreetly for the event, moved in. Two men, expressionless, stepped forward. James's voice cracked. "Wait, you're not serious." No one replied, no shouting, no scene, just precision. One guard took James's glass. The other leaned in, whispering something that drained the color from his face. James turned to Emma, now standing, trembling but unbroken. "Emma, please, this is crazy," he pleaded. She said nothing, not out of weakness, but because words weren't needed. For the first time, James realized the stage wasn't his. He was escorted out, not dragged, not shamed, but removed like a smudge wiped from glass. The doors closed behind him, and silence reclaimed the hall. Emma stood at the center, surrounded by stunned guests, scattered petals, and hushed murmurs. But her eyes held something new: clarity. The celebration was over, but no one moved, as if the room had frozen in a moment too raw to fade. She stepped onto the dance floor, where fairy lights still twinkled above. The floral arch swayed in the breeze, the music long gone. Her hands, once shaking, now rested steady at her sides. The pain lingered, but it had shifted, forging something stronger. Guests stared, some with pity, others with awe, many in shock, but Emma didn't see them. Her gaze fixed on the empty space where James had stood, not in longing, but in triumph over what she'd reclaimed, herself. Thomas Sullivan watched from the corner, arms folded, not as a savior, but as a witness to his daughter's rise. He'd raised her to stand tall, to never bend, and now she was doing it not for the crowd, not for him, but for herself. A family friend, who'd known Emma since she was a girl, approached, words of comfort forming, but Emma raised a hand. "I'm fine," she said, her voice soft but sure, not the brittle fine of hidden pain, but the kind tempered by fire. She wasn't the bride waiting for love anymore. She was the woman who'd never again settle for less than respect. The night didn't resume with dancing or toasts, but it didn't end in ruin. It closed in truth. Some guests slipped away, others offered quiet support, but all knew they'd seen something rare: a woman who didn't shatter, but soared. As Emma walked into the night, her gown trailing like a discarded crown, the stars above seemed to pulse with knowing. This wasn't the end of a love story, it was the dawn of her legend. If this moved you, hit like, subscribe for more stories of strength, and remember, respect isn't given, it's earned, and sometimes silence roars louder than words.